Hey guys, Mrhappy here, and today we're going to be doing a weekly dev post highlight video. I said I was going to do it weekly, but I missed last week. I actually don't remember why, but this week is the week of November 3rd. Actually, yes, last week was because of the Extra Life fundraiser I was doing, which, by the way, thank you everybody. We raised so far $2,743. Hopefully we're going to be able to at least reach the $3,000 mark for the charity. Thank you so much for everyone who participated, who came by the stream, who donated. Thank you all of you who support my channel. It means so much to me to be able to give back to the children's localized hospitals of New Jersey. Now, let's go right into the weekly dev post. So the first one we're going to be covering is a lot of this stuff is going to be saying, oh, it's in patch 2.1 or it's not in patch 2.1, so just expect it. And the first one, by far, one of the most important and one of the most requested things that people ask me about. In patch 2.1, we will be making a few adjustments to pet hotbars and abilities, starting with being able to hide the pet hotbar for mouse and keyboard users and addressing the use of pet actions for macros, which probably means implementing them in the first place, guys, because they're not in the game currently. We're looking into various adjustments, but we did not want to clarify they have no plans for a gambit system. That was just such a weird wording that they put into that one, but they're saying there won't be a gambit-style system for pets. For those of you who didn't play Final Fantasy XII, the gambit system meant that you could assign a player of your party to only do certain events under certain criteria, which means basically that you could tell them, hey, if this person's below 90% HP, always cast a cure. If this person's petrified, always cast this. And while pets are sort of designed that way in Final Fantasy XIV, they don't really have that much of the ability, and they don't really use it to the maximum effectiveness. So they just wanted to clarify there will not be a gambit system for pets. The second one now, this one was pretty interesting because this one had to do with the UI, and there was a lot of PS3/PS4/PC, just a lot of UI talk in the past week, actually. And this one was specifically referring to, is the PS3 version of the game holding the game back? Now, this question says, one goal of the UI team is to make it possible for players to enjoy the game on various platforms, and in doing so, they want to keep the UI fundamentally the same. With that goal in mind, certain aspects of the current PS3 UI will be addressed. So what they're saying is PS3 UI, we understand it's a little bit lacking. We want to improve it. And they want to say that no matter what happens, they want to keep both of these things as close to similar as they can. And some people are interpreting that as holding the PS3 back, and that is in response to somebody claiming that the PS3 version is holding the game back. Personally, I don't think it is, because they made completely different UI, a completely different graphic setting for the game, so I don't feel like it's going to hinder the PC version at all, but that's just my opinion, and everybody is indeed entitled to their own opinions. Now, this one was extremely interesting, number 3. There was actually a bit of a security countermeasure that had to go out this week, an emergency maintenance even. And that said, we've been receiving numerous questions and reports over the last few hours and confirmed unauthorized activity from third parties impersonating legitimate players who have targeted a portion of the marketplace. We don't currently have many reports of users affected, but in order to nip this in the bud, we're going to conduct emergency maintenance. So, basically, third parties taking control of legitimate players and messing with the marketplace a little bit, and this actually rose quite a bit of question. So they actually did confirm that they weren't just going to be doing large-scale character rollbacks, which was good, and they actually narrowed it down to approximately 200 cases of this sort of unauthorized activity. So we can assume that, based on what they said, that they would be rolling back approximately 200 cases worth of characters. Now, they don't claim how many characters are affected by the cases, and we don't know that if one case is equal to one character, but we know that there have been 200 separate cases at least. So there were no large-scale character rollbacks, although they are ensuring that people who are legitimate players who had their characters targeted by this unauthorized access, that they will get to keep everything, and that there should be no concern of whether or not they're actually going to be punished for something they didn't do. Now, the next one was actually very, very interesting, and this player actually had a pretty good point. Now, this post that I'm about to talk about now is a player saying that the PS3 controls for placing down such things such as Flaming Arrow, Shadow Flare, or the Black Mage Limit Break, they're saying that it's just too difficult because it moves the camera as you're moving the placement thing. So, yeah, it's a thing now. So, they actually made a really good recommendation, and the recommendation said, instead of making the camera move while you do that, make the camera stationary as soon as you select an ability such as Shadow Flare, Flaming Arrow, and make it so that the joystick simply controls the actual placement thing, because it's a placement thing now. That's what it is. So use the right joystick to control that, and then as soon as you place it, give it control of the camera again. And they actually said, greetings. Thank you for your suggestions. The development team definitely understands that there are times it's difficult to use the gamepad indicate ground targets such as Shadow Flare or Flaming Arrow, and they feel that the current ground target UI is not entirely complete. Along with your feedback, we are looking into an easier method to use these controls, but as there are other tasks that have been prioritized with a higher degree of urgency, this is something that will be addressed after patch 2.1, so at least they're aware of it, and I hope they take that guy's exact advice into it, because that sounds like a great solution to the problem, and I honestly hope to see that for PS3 players and controller users generally in the future. Next, this was a really long post, so I really had to pick just one thing that I really wanted to talk about from the post. And people were wondering why wait timers for macros, you can't use a decimal. For those of you who don't know, if you try to implement a decimal into a macro with a /wait timer, if you try to say like /wait 2.5, the 0.5 will actually round up to 3, or if it's 0.4, it'll round down to 2. It'll always make itself an integer. And they actually explain that originally they didn't intend for that. They didn't intend to go to the next decimal place. However, that once the game released, they decided that they needed to reduce that. And here are the reasons why. They said they do not want to make it so that macros must be used. Basically, if this were the case, macros would be 100% optimized for the game, and if you quote-unquote aren't using a macro, you aren't playing it right. That's what some people would start saying. Now, minimizing and optimizing actions without error, that of beyond human control, is not allowed. Basically, they're saying that you can make it so that the game could completely play your job for you if you made macros too precise, and that would indeed be a gameplay problem. Make it a support feature that can be used by people that are a bit shaky at controlling the game to ensure control while not making it 100% optimized. Basically, you can use it as a learning curve. If you are trying to learn your class and you don't really know your rotations yet, but you don't want to be a hindrance, it sort of helps. But then once you've learned your class and you've learned how to play and you've learned exactly what you need to do in order to rotate through your abilities, then you no longer need the tool, and you are in human control more optimized than the macros can make you. And finally, the players make the execution decision. We will not be implementing a feature where macros make its own decisions, because English. For example, we will not be implementing a feature that execute things based on certain criteria, player status, enemy HP, certain actions, etc. A lot of people have been asking me if they could make it sort of like the Gambit system, and you just heard them say in the previous post they have no interest in making anything Gambit style for pets. They repeated that in this post, saying they have no plans to make something Gambit based for this game, and those are the exact kind of things that the Gambit system was good at. Is, oh, I'm casting Cure. If somebody becomes poisoned, I can set it so that if poisoned, we'll cast Asuna, and they're not going to let you do things like that. If you want to cast Asuna on the target, you consciously need to make the decision to cast Asuna on the target. Now, next we have, this one was not really a high on priority, but it was questioned, so I figured why not? It's something that's vastly different from all the other dev posts that I've seen. So this was actually in regards to the crest on your brand company. The forum post actually started something completely different, but by the time that the dev poked his head in, this is what he had to say. Greetings. As some of you have most likely noticed, your free company crest is not displayed on the lodestone, and instead only the brand company you are affiliated with is shown. We'll be making it so your customized crests are displayed on the lodestone around the time of patch 2.1, so please hang tight a bit longer. Just a little bit of, looks. It's nothing that important, but some people are curious about it, and honestly, I think it's good. I think it shows respect for your free company when you want to show it off on your lodestones, and you should be allowed to do that. So thank you, Square Enix, for making those adjustments. I hope to see them quite soon after patch 2.1, maybe in a little patch, a lodestone maintenance, sometime after patch 2.1. This next one, I'm just going to read it out loud before I discuss what it was about. Number 7, hello. If you've been stressing out over getting crazy haircut or coloring your hair a wacky color in the barbershop and then regretting it later, have no fear. When we implement the barbershop, we will also be adding a feature that will allow you to revert your character back to their original state. Also, we've seen some ideas about having a sort of favorites list for certain options. We think this is a great idea, and while it won't make it in time for patch 2.1, we will be proactively looking into this so that we can add something like this in the future. So, in case you can figure it out entirely about the barbershop, which is coming in patch 2.1, if you were worried about messing up the way your character looks, don't worry. Unlike Files of Fantasia, you can undo the hairstyle and revert it completely back to the original and start from scratch while you figure out what kind of hairdos you want to do. And this favorites list could be really good. You could have maybe on Monday you feel like doing one hairstyle, on Wednesday you feel like doing another one. It really does help with the immersion factor of the barbershop, and I hope to see it quite soon after patch 2.1, hopefully before patch 2.2. Next we have this one, greetings. We understand that players are not utilizing Battlecraft leaves as often because the number of experience points that players can gain via the Fate is high. As such, we are looking into improving the experience points for Battlecraft and Grand Company leaves by adding an armory bonus. Now, this is massive because if any of you have seen any of my other videos about leaves, I've always said just don't even bother using them for battle. Save them strictly for gathering and crafting. And this is why, because the Battlecraft leaves just aren't good. Now, are they going to make it probably better, as good as Fates and Dungeons? Probably not, because you can do leaves. You can pump leaves out way faster than you can usually sit in Coerthus and just wait for Fates. It depends on what kind of Fates are spawning at the time, but it's going to be nice to see that they're going to make it come with the armory bonus. For those of you who don't know, the armory bonus is that 50% EXP boost that you get whenever you have a class above your current one. So basically, when you're leveling your second, third, fourth, etc. Battle classes, you'll be able to make use of the leaves, and they will be far more effective than they used to be. That should be really good, because leaves actually give you dungeon grade gear from time to time, so it's really good. Well, pink grade, ethereal grade, which you usually get from dungeons. You can also get it from leaves. Next, we have this dev post. Greetings. The development team is aware of the fact that some players constantly withdraw when you are being matched with players via the duty finder. They plan on implementing countermeasures for this to decrease the frequency in which this happens. However, they will not be able to address this right away, as they are wrapped up in other high priority tasks. On another note regarding this, we do not plan on giving penalties to these players who withdraw when you are getting ready to commence, due to the fact that there is a possibility that players who do not have malicious intent could be penalized. We apologize for the inconvenience and appreciate your understanding. Basically what they're saying is, and I don't know if any one of you are doing this, but if you are, it's probably not a good idea. Basically, you try and join a party in progress, and if you don't get a party that's on the last boss, people are just leaving the party. They're leaving the queue entirely. They're not even pressing yes. They're just declining the invite until they get a party that's 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 on the bosses, so they can just do the last boss and get the clear. And it's really causing problems for people who want to queue up and do it normally, or it's even causing problems for people who maybe are stuck on the second boss of a dungeon and nobody wants to join them. So they really need to fix this sort of thing, and I hope that they have a good solution to this. Again, they're not doing something because it could affect innocent players, but honestly, it's all going to come down to how often it ends up happening and what actually ends up happening. If these players aren't going to be penalized in any way, how are you going to really control how well that you control this situation? How well can you really prevent it if you don't penalize somebody is the question. But I guess we'll see. And the final dev post that we're going to be going over, let's read it. Greetings. We are currently working on adjustments for patch 2.1 to make it so food effects do not wear off when you are KO'd. We understand that there have been a lot of feedback asking for longer effect durations or higher stats when considering the materials needed for high-level recipes, but we'd first like to monitor the situation with the planned adjustments. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this at all, and if any of you know why, it's because the food market on some servers is great and on other servers it's not. If you do this, you're going to drastically decrease the demand for food, while you're probably not going to decrease the supply. So it just means that the market itself is probably going to crash for the food if this ends up being the case. Now, if they end up making it just so maybe high quality food persists through death, then I think the market will actually get better, and I think that culinarians will actually be able to make more money, while buyers will probably end up having to spend more money. Which, so one wins, one loses. You're not going to win on both sides here. You're not going to win so that the user is happy and the seller is happy. So we'll see what they do. We'll see what the adjustments actually come, but I am not a huge fan of this effect. I firmly believe that your food effect should wear off of you when you die. I don't know. I guess when you die, you just, you just poop it all out. So I guess that's just how it works. I don't know, but somehow you lose your food effects every single time you die. I think it's fair, so let's just keep it in there, okay? But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. There's a link to each and every one of these posts in the description below. Also, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. You can like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy XIV information. Be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter, though, because you can go there and ask me questions about what I'm doing, about what's going on with the videos. If you have a question about a video, feel free to ask questions, because, well, that's what I do. I answer them. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.